Welcome back. Behind me you can see the Curve FlashLender in action. There's $1 million sitting there, and it's yours. As long as you follow a few simple rules, you can use it to make money. Let's show off how to use the Curve FlashLender to run liquidations. For all the concerns about flash lending and its role in DeFi, the contract behind flash lending is incredibly simple. All it is essentially a contract which has a pretty standard interface, and when you call this FlashLoan function on it, it will transfer the entire amount that you like. It will then trigger in the contract that called this the onFlashLoan function, which essentially processes given this amount of token that's been transferred. And after it's done processing, if the balance is not the same, then the flash loan has failed. If it succeeds, then it logs it and returns true. Very, very, very simple concept, as you can see. The only other functions here is there's a flash fee, which in this case is set to 0, and a max flash loan amount, which is simply set to the balance of this contract. So very short contract for something that is processing $1 million. Curve leaves this around to assist with liquidations. As we'll see, it can happen very easily. We're working back with our original VyperWif token to bring it back full circle. The VyperWif token was launched with a price of $1. You can see this borrower has come in and taken out a loan of about 30 bands, and all these cells are repeats of previous units. If you want to expand it and have any questions, check the prior videos. A trader comes along and trades this in such a way where it kind of bounces around this median price, and it ends up leaving the user subject to liquidation at about halfway through their collateral price. So the VyperWif token was at $1. They max borrowed, so this is between 97 cents and $1. This is bouncing very quickly. And you can see that the borrower health has dipped negative, which means when you call the controller users to liquidate, there's one user and they are subject to liquidation. Here you can see the state of this user. About half their collateral has been converted to Curve USD. The other half is in stablecoins. So you can't just run a direct pure liquidation because the Curve USD does not cover it. You could run an extended liquidation in which you convert the VyperWif into Curve USD and then run the liquidation. That is the extended liquidation that we showed off a couple units back. In this case, though, we are going to be deploying a liquidator contract. So using Titanoboa's cell magic, we're able to run this Viper script directly in the Jupyter Notebook. This is a very simple liquidation contract, which is going to be utilizing the Curve FlashLender. You can see there's a few interfaces. We're interfacing with the FlashLender to run the flash loan. We're interfacing with the controller to be able to liquidate the user, as well as to grab the tokens that it's supporting. And we are using the Curve liquidity pool for the VyperWif token in order to trade the VyperWif that we get into Curve USD. Then here we're storing the contracts, the tokens, and what we call the victim and the hero, aka the person who is being liquidated and the person who is getting the proceeds. We set these when the contract is deployed, so it's going to be tied to a single FlashLender contract. It's going to be tied to a specific controller and a specific pool for that. That's all hard-coded. We pull in the collateral and Curve USD token from the controller. Other than that, we are ready to run a liquidation. This is the function that we're going to be calling when we'd like to trigger the liquidation on this particular victim and send it to this hero. Here we're setting the addresses as the contract storage variables. One other good way that you could do this is when you're calling a flash loan, the final argument here is an empty string of bytes. You could use this to pass the parameters directly. This would probably be slightly more of a secure way of doing it, although, of course, this is just for the sake of demonstration. This would basically allow you to encode the victim and hero into this byte and then decode it when you receive it. We're also asking for this amount, and in this case, we're kind of going wild. We're asking for the entire balance of the FlashLender contract, which is currently $1 million Curve USD. You might not actually want to ask for the entire amount. You might ask for just the amount you need, but just for the sake of demonstration, we are taking the entire $1 million and then returning it. This onFlashLoan is the function that gets called by the FlashLender. Within the scope of this contract, we have $1 million Curve USD at our disposal. What we're doing with this Curve USD is first we are setting approvals. We are going to make sure that we just have a ridiculous amount of Curve USD. So when we call this liquidate and we are approved for the max amount, this just takes from that and runs it. Now, because we saw that we are liquidating for $100,000 and there's only $50,000 in collateral, this means we're going to have $50,000 worth of VyperWif. We're going to convert that VyperWif back into CurveUSD in order to repay the Flash loan. So here we use the liquidity pool. We call the get.dy function to figure out how much we're expecting. We will pass that as our expected parameter, so this will revert if something happens and we don't get that amount. We'll go ahead and repay the Flash loan. This is the amount variable that was called in this function when we ran it. We're paying back the exact amount, and anything that's left over, we're transferring back to the hero parameter that we set when we call this function. Once we've deployed this, we go ahead and run this. We're setting an anchor so we can go back and play with this just a little bit. This is going to revert it back to the previous state when we're done. And we are running this as the liquidator. We are calling the run liquidation function. We are sending it, and when we're done, we've made $1,380.69 for our troubles. You might say, well, what if you don't want the entire amount? Like, this is where you can actually go through and play with it. If instead of the entire amount in CurveUSD, maybe you want to only get $500, in which case you could change that parameter, run a different one, and this gives us 500 VyperWif tokens and 882 CurveUSD. You might want to do this because in the event of liquidation, maybe there's going to be like massive slippage in the pool. Or maybe you want it entirely back as VyperWif, in which case you could calculate the exact amount that you would need using a getDX function and then pass this back. Really, the sky's the limit. When you have $1 million to play with, it's pretty easy to make money, and thanks to Flash Lending, you can have that power on chain. If you got any questions, definitely drop them in the comments. It's been an absolute pleasure. Stay safe, friends.